My Ace Boone Coons, what is up? Today is July 1st, 2025. We're going to do a little look at George Van Tassel today. George Van Tassel was an American inventor and aeronautical engineer. Fascinating history, good rabbit hole I thought to go down. Check it out. So here's a brief history of George Van Tassel. George Van Tassel was an American inventor, aeronautical engineer, and UFO enthusiast, best known for building the Integratron, a structure he claimed could rejuvenate cells and facilitate time travel. He had a history with Lockheed Martin, as he worked for them as a flight inspector in the 1930s. He also worked for Douglas Aircraft and Howard Hughes during his career in aviation. Elaboration. Early career. Van Tassel's career in aviation began in the 20s. He worked as a flight inspector for Lockheed and Douglas Aircraft. He also worked for Howard Hughes at Hughes Aviation, where he was a top flight inspector. Giant rock and UFO interests. In 1947, Van Tassel moved to Landers, California. Drawn to the allure of the giant rock, a large boulder believed to have a mystical power, he began hosting annual interplanetary spacecraft conventions, there attracting thousands of UFO enthusiasts. The Integratron, Van Tassel's most famous creation, is the Integratron, a structure he built in the Mojave Desert. He claimed that extraterrestrials from Venus provided him with the plans for the Integratron, which he believed could rejuvenate cells and enable time travel. Although the Integratron was never fully completed according to Van Tassel's original vision, it has become a popular tourist destination and it is known for its unique sound baths. It is now privately owned and used for sound healing experiences. Why didn't he complete that project? Well, let's find out. I'm going to let y'all be the judge. Here is an old interview with him. I saw it earlier today and I found it fascinating and very convincing. I don't think the man is a fraud, y'all. I think he is the truth. Word has it that he was killed or taken out before he can complete the Integratron. But that's a conspiracy for entertainment purposes only. Let's dig in. Let's find out what's going on, what happened. Yeah, the Integratron was a huge, like, it looked like an observatory, a space observatory, but it was, the plans to build it were given to him by a group of four men who landed on his airport because he owned an airport in California, which he leased to the military. Well, anyway, he said he was visited by four beings in a spacecraft and they gave him this information. They gave him the formula to create the Integratron and that it would heal people from all sorts of diseases and cancers, and it would also help or be a tool for time travel. Also, it was meant to help you live longer. It would rejuvenate your cells, and the beings that visited claimed to be 700 years old. Do I find that far-fetched? Not at all. Why do you think Moses lived so long? People in the Bible. I don't think the Bible's telling you everything. I believe the Bible is true, but I do believe nowadays it needs to be deciphered and read and prayed. Pray before you read it, that the Lord will reveal his living word to your spirit, soul, mind, body. Anyway, let's dig in, y'all. This is going to be interesting.
Bad. So it's safe to talk about flying saucers and people from outer space. people who may be circulating among us now and who demonstrate their unearthly qualities, if they choose you as one of their agents, by disappearing and reappearing at will in your very presence, in front, if necessary, of many witnesses, and who land on this materialistic earth in flying saucers, to which you, if you're one of the chosen, shall enter through an anti-gravity elevator. Nothing to hold you up. You just whisk up into the body of the flying saucer, a scout ship from outer space. No, I'm not really joking, because I've got a man now, here and now, one of the men who claims fervently that he has met these people from outer space, has talked to them, and has been given secrets of things such as a time machine from men from outer space. You'll meet this man after this plebeian and earthly message. The man you're going to meet in a moment or two, Van Tassel, from Giant Rock, California, is a most unlikely person to claim to have seen flying saucers and been in touch with people from outer space. George is a very ordinary fellow. He doesn't make any money out of his flying saucer beliefs, but boy, he really believes them. And before I start talking to George, I want to tell you, too, that I do have a couple of doubts in my mind. We all see these newspaper reports from Socorro, New Mexico, that a mysterious craft landed and took off and left blast marks in the sand. Airline pilots from time to time talk delicately about strange aircraft circling their normal aircraft in flight, perhaps even cutting off the power of their engines momentarily. We all love to talk about the mysterious and the unknown and the flying saucers. So now it's to George Van Tassel and this question. Time machine you're building down in California.
Well, Jack, this was the result of a formula which was given to me by a man who landed a ship at my airport in 1953. And we put this formula under research, tested a number of experiments on a bench in a good electronics lab in Chicago, and we produced phenomenal results with evidence that we should do it on a larger scale in order to be able to do more with it. And this evolved out of something that started in 1953 into a 4-story high machine that we're working on down there today.
Now, George, I don't care whether the machine is 4 stories high or 40 stories high or 4 inches high. When I say calmly and unexcitedly, a time machine, what does your formula tell you you can do with a time machine?
Well, Jack, our formula has no time factor, which electronic formula does have. And on the other hand, electronic science has only had 2 dimensions to work with, the electric pattern and the magnetic pattern perpendicular to it. And we discovered a 3rd zone, which we call a time zone, and we are working through this zone with an effort to orient the magnetic field to give us other results than our science can obtain at present.
George, just double talk to me. A time machine means to me a little box that I can go into and go back 5,000 years or forward 10,000 years. Is that what your formula tells you you can do?
Well, Jack, this isn't a little box. This is a 4-story machine focusing fields that we can orient to produce this zone big enough for a man to get into. It isn't a box.
But what happens to the man when he gets into the zone?
Well,
I'm all agog with curiosity.
Jack, we've discovered this zone is subject to thought. Now, since time doesn't record events the way we do on calendars and clocks, you could only record an event by thinking of it. Now, theoretically, we believe we can take a videotape magnetic camera into the time zone and photograph Lincoln's Gettysburg Address or Caesar's armies marching or anything that's ever happened.
All right, let me get this straight. In other words, you're telling me, like H.G. Wells imagined 50 years ago, that everything that happened in time is still there to be seen by the recreation electronically of a thought which exists.
Jack, you know how you talk into a tape on a tape recorder and play the interruptions back, identical to the play that you made. The Earth's magnetic field is the same way. You can put interruptions into it and play them back out of it. An associate of ours in creating a magnetic coupler with this principle coupled in the Earth's magnetic field and played back TV shows from stations that aren't even in business anymore.
You mean that an experiment has been done to bring out of the air television programs which have been and gone?
Been and gone.
Now, where was this experiment conducted?
It was conducted in Santa Monica by an associate of mine.
Why hasn't this hit the headlines throughout the world? That's a time machine in action. If I can...
Jack, the reason it hasn't hit the world is because, as I understand it now, the Navy Department took him and the research over because he also discovered he could bounce magnetic echoes off the ionosphere and locate submarines under the ocean, regardless of where they were.
So who is this associate of yours?
This is a fellow named Charlie Arts.
Charlie Arts?
Yeah.
And is he a...
All right, I'm going to pause it right there because I have a thought before I forget. Does that not sound like remote viewing? I know if you watch this type of stuff, you know what remote viewing is. Also, seems like the essence of manifesting and visualizing. You know, to manifest, you have to have your emotions in check. You have to vibrate high, and you have to know how to visualize. You have to have detail of what you want in your mind. And that's what I understand. Mr. Van Tassel is letting us know that the power of the mind is time, and time cannot record an image, but your mind can, and that is how you bring it forth. Also, he is saying that is one of the keys to time traveling. You have to put some sort of still image or moving image, and I don't know of the dimensions or the formula or the structures and tools that you need to do that, but part of the key is to have an image of where you want to go, what you want to see, and he's going to explain it a little bit more here. But that is fantastic, wonderful, super interesting, to say the least. It has also been one of my thoughts. This is something I came up with, that it seems that everything that is put on film, everything that is put on in a book, and they call science fiction, is not science fiction anymore. I feel like that is what he is also describing uh, of what's happening now. This was back in the 40s, 50s, or something, and it seems that whatever movie is put out there, it is becoming a reality. So there is some very, very hard proof that he is on to something with just movies and books alone. All right, I won't hold you. Let's go.
free man walking around today?
Well, he's free where he is in this super secret research he's conducting.
Now, so therefore you tell me soberly in front of this television camera that things, old television programs have been recreated out of nothing.
Played back with a picture and the sound just as good as the day they were broadcast. We've done this many times.
Why didn't you bring one up with you?
Well, this requires quite a piece of apparatus. This magnetic coupler works on around 50,000 volts, and it doesn't have any radio frequency connected with it. And actually, the television set which plays back the picture doesn't even have an antenna connected to it.
George, you know as well as I do, and you've been on television 350 times, and I've known you. I've met you once 7 years ago, and I kind of like you. But you know what the people out there are saying. They're saying this man's a nut.
Well, Jack, you know, when Fulton was running his steamboat up the Hudson River, there were people still standing on the bank saying it couldn't be done.
All right, let me take you further back, though. You have a time machine plan. You have done experiments which show you can bring the past to life. Where did this formula come from?
I love that Scotch accent. Jack, the formula came from a ship that landed at my airport in 1953 on August the 24th, which had 4 people aboard it that came from another planet.
I'm breathless.
Well, you're not only breathless, I was breathless.
But I'm cynical, too.
Well, that's fine. That's the way to be. In fact, I'm a bigger skeptic than you are of many things.
I'm an unbeliever. Convince me that this really happened to you.
Well, this thing is very similar to a thing that happened in our biblical records where a Lord presented Moses with a pattern to build a tabernacle. They came out of the sky, they handed him stone tablets, and this phenomena that's taking place today is as old as our history, as our civilization. This isn't anything new that's occurring. It's something that's being continued in another time of crisis when conditions affecting the people of this planet are reaching a point where somebody has to take care of the situation.
Now, I don't intend in any way to be disrespectful or blasphemous, but do you feel, and I know you're not an evangelistic type, do you feel that you're some kind of Moses receiving a new word?
Well, I don't say that, Jack. I say that what is occurring now has occurred before. There's many records of these ships landing throughout history, clear back into Sanskrit. And there are records in the 1898 Chicago newspapers that covered the front page for 3 days of a big ship setting over Chicago. When you realize we're dealing with a type of man that is almost as far above us in intelligence as we are above the lower animals, there isn't anything phenomenal in this at all.
Now, you say casually, because this is your life's work now, ships. Now, you mean flying saucer, don't you?
Well, a flying saucer was a name the press put on this thing, and actually what they termed a flying saucer was nothing but a scout ship from the big carriers.
But I want to go back to that night in 1953. Tell me, where did this happen for people who haven't heard you talk or seen you yet?
It happened on...
Noted. Scout ships from a bigger carrier. Sounds like a mothership, right? I think what we're seeing in our skies is nothing compared to what will be revealed one day. Motherships.
On my airport, which I've operated for the last 16 years, at Giant Rock Airport, 17 miles north of Yucca Valley in California, or 40 miles north of Palm Springs.
Now, this is a private airport for small aircraft, is it?
This is an airport used both by the military and private aircraft.
You own this airport, do you?
I lease this airport from the United States government. I've operated it for 16 years since I retired from the flight test business and the aviation.
Right now. How old are you now, by the way, George?
I'm 54, Jack. Got 3 grown daughters married and 11 grandchildren.
You don't mind if I ask you the stock question? I know that you've been asked every obnoxious question that can ever have been asked. You've never been treated for any form of emotional upset.
I've never had an emotional upset other than women.
Except that night in Yucca Flats, not Yucca Flats, at Giant Rock, when this ship appeared. Now, give me the details, George, because I'm never tired of hearing the details of a man who says he has seen creatures from another world.
Well, actually, Jack, this was as simple as crossing a street and getting hit by a car. After it's over, you're the victim of the circumstance. And I didn't see the ship land. One of my son-in-laws, that wasn't my son-in-law at that time, saw it come down. Another man on the airport heard it, and he wasn't where he could see it. And the man got off of the ship and approached me before I even knew there was a ship down.
Where were you then? What time of day or night was it?
It was 2 o'clock in the morning and approximately a full moon, which is like daylight on the desert.
Were you walking about outside or what?
No, I was sound asleep when he awakened me.
This man awakened you?
Well, something awakened me.
So you got up out of your bed?
I got out of my bed and went aboard the ship at his request.
This man, in what language did he converse with you?
He talked to me in the best English equivalent to Ronald Coleman.
And he met you there and he said, what did he say, come with me to my ship, or what?
No, he said, I asked him what he wanted because we have a lot of people come in stuck in the sand and broken axles and whatnot. And I asked him what he wanted, and he said, my name is Solganda, and I would be pleased to show you our craft.
Solgonda.
Soganda.
Was the craft visible to you at this time?
It was when he stated this, I saw beyond him the ship, which
Oh.
I hadn't seen before.
What did you see?
A bell-shaped type of anti-gravity ship that they operate as a scout ship out of their big carriers.
How big?
This was 36 feet in diameter and 19 feet high.
And where was it? On the ground?
No, it was hovering 10.
And how did you go into this ship?
I walked with him to a spot underneath it, and an anti-gravity beam took me up through a hole in the bottom of it.
You're telling me at 2 o'clock in the morning in Giant Rock Airport, you walked underneath this hovering ship, and whammo, you went up
No,
inside.
you didn't go whammo. You went just about as slow as a local elevator run.
And when you got off the anti-gravity elevator, what did it look like?
I was inside of a ship about 18 feet in diameter and roughly 10 feet high to the domed ceiling, and there were 3 men on the ship, besides the one that had got off and invited me aboard.
You keep calling them man. What do you mean man?
Well,
Little green man?
they were about 5'6". They came about to my eyebrows, and they could have walked in our clothes down any of our streets, and we wouldn't have paid any attention to them.
And did you bring any proof off that ship? Were you alone in the ship?
I was alone with the 3 men until the other fellow came up behind me, and then the 4 of them were aboard.
Were there any other earthly eyewitnesses to this?
Nothing, only outside of the ship,
And these people stayed outside?
on the airport.
And did you go anywhere in this ship?
Not to my knowledge. When I got off, it was the same place it was when I got on.
What do you mean, not to your knowledge? Had the door closed when you went in or something?
I don't know, because it was below the deck.
And did these people tell you where they came from?
They didn't say where they came from, but I've been in the air game since 1927, and their instruments were unlike anything I'd ever seen before.
Well, don't give me technicalities. What was different?
The difference was that we used dial instruments, and they used vertical instruments, like fluorescent tubes with marks on them.
What
And,
color were these people?
The instruments were marked in symbols similar to hieroglyphics. They were not in any language or number system we use on the Earth.
What color were these people?
They looked like they were white people with a good, healthy tan.
Did they give you any indication of how old they were, or what they ate, or where they came from at all?
After we got off the ship, the man who invited me aboard, who didn't look a day over 28 years of age, told me that he was over 700 years of age in our time.
Oh, come off it, George.
That's right.
Was this the guy who gave you the formula for the time machine?
That's the man.
And what form did the formula take? Did he implant it in your mind by telepathy, or did he give you something written in English?
He spoke it to me verbally.
And you remembered this?
There's nothing to it to remember.
Will you tell me now? The
Yeah.
formula for a time machine.
F equals 1 over T.
F equals 1 over T.
F being frequency and T being time.
And this enables me to go back to the time of Caesar's armies conquering Britain.
Well, it would enable a mathematician to work this out, yes.
And why hasn't this been acclaimed like Einstein's E equals mc squared?
Well, why hasn't the fact that the United States government's been flying anti-gravity ships since 1956 been acclaimed? Or the fact that there's a crater on the moon with a base in it since 1954, we've known this.
All right, but let's get, first of all, the U.S. Why haven't the FBI clapped you incommunicado for breaking secrets that they want to keep secret in the United States?
Well, possibly because they know this information's going to get out eventually anyway, and what I say won't make any difference.
Now that...
I am so thankful for this interview. The interviewer is asking all the right questions. Bro, I won't hold you. This is fascinating to me. Did you hear about the base on the moon since 1956? Our government has been flying anti-gravity spaceships since 1956. Bro, this is one of the greatest rabbit holes I've gone down in such a long time.
particular night when you had this experience, did you call the police? Did you call the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the White House?
Well, I'm 17 miles from the nearest phone, Jack, and the nearest phone would get me to the sheriff's office, and it'd take them about 40 minutes to get out there.
Or wouldn't you have a phone on an airport?
No, we have no phone.
But you're an operating airport.
Well, we're an operating airport, but we're isolated in the middle of the desert, 17 miles from the closest town, and they've never run phones out there.
So how do you communicate with people who want to use your airport?
They fly in or write and phone to the local town where my daughter lives, and she notifies us when she comes out.
Now, you talked about a crater on the moon. Now, I thought all the moon stuff had been debunked and that nobody ever really knows what goes on the moon. What's this?
Well, this is the Gassendi crater. This is 55 miles long and oval-shaped. It's in the Mare Humorum Sea, or on the edge of it. Since 35 years ago, they wondered why this particular crater had these lines in it. And with the magnification which you can get with a larger telescope, this is what they found. These lines are tubes laying on the surface of this crater and running under some of the mountain ridges. There are 3 large dome-shaped structures in here. These tubes run clear outside of the crater, and we know they are tubes laying on the surface because the sun is shining from this angle, and this mountain peak causes this shadow.
What does it all mean? Does it mean that this is a rocket launching or a flying saucer base on the moon?
This has been a base on the moon for perhaps many thousands of years, used by these people in the spaceships to resupply their ships or whatever is required.
Not even Life magazine has accepted this as genuine, or has it?
Well, the Palomar Observatory people that took the picture won't even comment on it, so...
There must be a great conspiracy of silence to keep George Van Tassel's secret of the universe away from the people.
No, it isn't to keep anything I know away from the people. It's to keep many things away from the people.
Is that the place where you did the experiments? By the way, how old were these television programs you pulled back out of time and space?
Well, the oldest one was 6 years back because television was 6 years old when this was done.
And what program was it? Do you remember?
I don't remember what program, but I know that on checking up on some of the stations that Art found that the station no longer existed. It was out of business.
Let's get down to some more basics now. Are you making a lucrative living out of traveling around the world, evangelizing for flying, around the continent, evangelizing for flying saucers?
No, Jack, I'm on a vacation to rest my wife because she's been 2 years in a 40-seat restaurant without a rest, more than anything else, and I enjoy these particular things as a sideline. I make my living on the airport, and this research is something that I've got more money into than anybody else and more contribution to it. 5 years of intensive research without any pay. We donated 10 acres of land with a well worth $23,000, and we formed this corporation for the purpose of building up and investigating this basic material.
All right, now how long is it going to take you to get your time machine in operation?
Well,
I mean, it all sounds so crazy. You must admit, I believe there are some odd things, George, but I find it hard to credit because I wasn't there myself, your own experiences.
Well, it took them around 8 years to grind the mirror for the 200-inch telescope, and the first cyclotron was something like 11 years in the progress of building.
But that cost millions, George. You haven't got millions, billions it cost.
No, we don't have the overhead, the drafts from the engineers and people sitting around the payroll. All of our effort on this is voluntary by many people in technical fields that contribute their effort to the project.
They all believe in flying saucers.
They all believe in flying saucers.
And you obviously believe totally in flying saucers.
Yeah.
Because of that one. Does your wife believe in flying saucers?
Well, I don't know very many people that don't. It's as obvious as believing in heaven or afterlife or anything else. You have certain things you believe in life. You believe there's air we breathe, yet you don't see it. We fly airplanes on it. And this is an intangible. We can measure it.
But why should these people come down, these from outer space? Why don't they land in the White House or in Kremlin Square in Moscow and say, hey, listen to us, we can tell you a few things. We're 700 years old. We can travel through space. We're not concerned with time differentials.
Well, probably they're not concerned with giving us too much of their information because we'd only use it in our battle to destroy each other here.
Did these 4 men tell you that themselves?
No, they didn't tell me that, but this is a reasonable assumption on our part that the world's divided in 2 camps, each capable of eliminating the whole civilization. And if we were to go to another planet and observe this condition, we would certainly be a little cautious about who we talk to or what we reveal.
Yeah, but You yourself, was that the only experience you had? Mind you, that's 11 years ago in 1953, George.
That's right.
When you claimed to me you went up in this elevator into the spaceship and met the guy who spoke like Ronald Colman. Was that your only contact with the...
That was the only contact I had with the people from the ship.
Have you had any other contacts with people?
I've had a recent contact last September, 1963.
Well, I don't have to ask you. Tell me.
Well, in this case, they drove a car into the airport. They didn't come in a ship. They're walking among us on the Earth all the time, and we don't realize it.
I'm breathless. They. How many was they?
The they and the ship was 4 men.
They in the car?
The man that came in, there was a man came in by himself in September.
Will you be telling me he had Martian license plates on the car?
No. They drove a standard American Cadillac.
And what did they want with you in 1963, 10 years later?
They gave me some more information pertinent to electronic and magnetic research.
But how did you know they were from some mysterious place in outer space?
You don't know unless they want you to know, and then they'll demonstrate some thing that they can do that we can't do, that's humanly impossible for us to do.
What did they demonstrate to you which convinced you, an apparently sober, sensible, balanced person who nevertheless believes in flying saucers, that convinced you they were unearthly people?
Well, they demonstrated the ability in front of 19 people sitting in a lounge, for instance, that they could sit there and disappear before your eyes and reappear. In fact, the man did this 3 times.
For you and your friends?
For 19 witnesses that were sitting in our lounge.
Vanished in front of your eyes?
Sit right there in a chair like you're there, and then you're not there, and then you're back there. He did this 3 times.
Now, I'm going to disappear, but purely for 1 minute for this message. The previous foregoing interview with George Van Tassel of Giant Rock Airport, California, was not, I must stress, presented to you as a scientific examination of George's claims. There are so many holes in George's claims, even to the layman like myself, that one is bound to be, how shall I put it, a trifle cynical. For instance, why didn't George keep one of the men with him to produce a living proof? And then we could have checked medically his heart and lungs and everything else about him to try and substantiate the claim that he is 700 Earth years of age. And why didn't he at least tell George where they came from? Or why didn't he at least present George with some physical, concrete proof so that people wouldn't regard him with suspicion and skepticism as someone who was perhaps just a little bit, you know, overly easily convinced perhaps by some form of hallucination? But he did tell us one thing, how to recognize visitors from outer space. If they ever come to you and you're sitting in a room and they snap their fingers 3 times and disappear, and when they reappear a few seconds later, then you'll know for sure that they are from outer space. Thank you and good night.
Y'all, that was a gem. And I'm so glad I recorded this because more people are going to know about this and this video may not last. Thank God I found this. This is one of the most magnificent rabbit holes I've been down in a long time. Hebrews 13:2. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing, some people have shown hospitality to angels without even knowing it. Be kind to everyone. You never know, you might be entertaining an angel, y'all. There is something very spiritual about this. It has led me down the rabbit hole of George Van Tassel. I believe scripture has told us very similar stories, and it reminds us that history repeats itself. George Van Tassel is not a prophet. He's not considering himself a prophet. He's not claiming that he is a prophet. But he did mention the story of Moses when a divine being came and visited him and gave him the blueprint on how to build the tabernacle. I believe the same thing has happened to George Van Tassel. And if you are blessed enough vibrate high enough, have good intention, or no intention at all, I believe you might get a visit. Anyway, let's dig a little deeper. This next man had breakfast with George Van Tassel back in 1972. Pay attention to all the books that are going to be displayed here on the screen that George Van Tassel wrote in case you want to dive a little deeper. This is a description of what he remembers George Van Tassel being like, personality wise, spiritual wise, physical wise, and what he got out of George Van Tassel's message. He asked him, why do you think he shared this information? Listen up.
Till about dawn, drinking whiskey with Swede. And he says, well, Van Tassel will be at the Giant Rock Airport Cafe in the morning at 10 o'clock. You know, my wife-to-be is his daughter. She's the waitress there. And we kind of went, okay. So he told us how to get from the Integratron property out here, and we drove out and had breakfast with Dr. Van Tassel for about an hour and a half. Trying to kind of explain to us Einstein or whoever it was this theory of relativity where you cannot create or destroy energy, it's always existing in some facet, and that basically the Integratron was kind of a giant receptor, and it was kind of like he was going, well, it's not like getting in a time machine like the old movie from the 50s, it was kind of an antenna. And he was hoping that basically he could find those waves and put it on a screen to go back in history. That was kind of the sense of it, but he seemed like a real religious man as well, because he said one of the things that he wanted to be able to tune into on the screen was when Jesus Christ lived, so he could basically share that with the world and that energy. So it was kind of a odd combination of being a physicist and a scientist, and we had heard about him collaborating in some facet with what's his name? Howard Hughes. And so we were just extremely curious and decided we'd come out and see if we could find him, and we did. He was, on some level, sort of a genius in one facet because of his intellect, and yet kind of a spiritual person at the same time, which, is kind of an odd mixture, and I don't think that's ever changed. Since came out here and met him. He was an interesting character. I remember that on the wall in the restaurant, there was a center page of, either a Life magazine or a Look magazine with an article and a photograph of old cars, probably from the 40s, and all these people kind of running with various looks of being afraid, and kind of a glowing object in the sky. Since then, I've been in the Integratron, which is an absolutely amazing experience in itself. At that time, I never got inside, but it's a pretty amazing kind of paradolic dome, and sounds and things are just mind-boggling. The thing that still makes me curious to this day is the mix of science and spirituality. It almost seems kind of yin and yang opposites. Serious he was, and he was very open to having a conversation with a total stranger who didn't necessarily believe in UFOs or didn't have a scientific knowledge of the Integratron. I could understand that it was all built with glue and dowels and things to, not have metal interfere with wrapped copper wire. And you go upstairs and you stand over that opening and you whisper to yourself, and you're hearing your voice going in this deep dark, and it's like, what is this? How does this happen?
Y'all, so today is July 2nd, July 1st, 2025. And I don't know how many episodes I've done so far. I'm kind of still new to this, so I would really, 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 really appreciate if you subscribe. Please help me out with this. This episode is by far my most favorite episode I've done today. So, that last clip that just played, this whole episode was based on George Van Tassel and his Integetron, which was a plan given to him by aliens from Venus that came to his airport in California, landed in a scout spaceship believed to be part of a bigger mothership. And the plan that they gave him were blueprints on how to create the Integratron, and kind of reminds me of the Noah story. On God gave Noah the plans on how to build the ark and very detailed dimensions. It reminds me of the tabernacle, that the plans that God gave Moses on how to build a tabernacle. So this Integratron was meant to preserve human life and make you live forever, or for many, many hundreds, if not thousands of years. It's also known to rejuvenate the human body and heal it from all disease and all sickness. I think this is fascinating, and it's leading me back to some old clips of the Trump family and the theory that these people might be time travelers. So I'm going to play a few of those clips. But who are we dealing with here? If so, are these aliens bad, good? These beings, are they angels, demons? It seems like they want to share some very good information, but could it be a double-edged sword? Who knows? I think, in my opinion, they're good. They want the best for us, but the powers at be, it's a battle versus good and evil, just like the Bible tells us. All right, so this whole episode of George Van Tassel reminds me of Jared Kushner saying that he's going to live to be immortal, and the marvelous underground stories of Baron Trump, a book written over 100 years ago, with so much detail. And you guys be the judge. I'm gonna play some clips. I'm gonna leave you with this. God bless you so much. This has been an awesome, awesome deep dive. Tell me what you think. Please comment and subscribe. Love you. God bless you.
Friend, and then finally, I think that from the last year, the one thing I've tried to put a priority on since I left the White House was getting some exercise in. I think that there's a good probability that my generation is, hopefully with the advances in science, either the first generation to live forever or the last generation that's going to die. And so we need to keep ourselves in pretty good shape. And then the other thing I like, friend, and then finally,
are they time travelers, y'all? Oof. Oof.
In my 20s, I stumbled my way in, and what I found is a secretive Christian organization called The Family that had been hiding in plain sight for over 80 years.
This was a group with tentacles around the world.
A humble example of leadership that the world has never seen.
A breathtaking enmeshment of church and state.
There were congressmen, senators, world leaders.
And they say it's about faith, but there's a shared understanding that what we're really about here is power.
I'd like to single out Doug Coe.
Doug Coe and all of his associates. I'm grateful.
Doug Coe was the longtime leader of the family.
He's the most powerful man in Washington you've never heard of.
He said the more invisible you can make your organization, the more influence it will have.
Jesus plus nothing. It's a powerful thing.
Using the National Prayer Breakfast, they dispatch representatives to build relationships with foreign leaders.
That is exactly the kind of meeting that I would want to exploit.
For the family, Jesus says you must go to those who are in positions of power.
God always uses imperfect vessels to do his perfect work. President Trump's an imperfect vessel.
Jesus is the answer, but Jesus and Capitol Hill don't mix.
Because in my 20s, I stumbled.
Word. So that's a documentary on Netflix called The Family, which is kind of creepy, and it talks about a very powerful Christian group of secret societies in Washington. I don't know. Check it out. I thought it was good. Here's the Baron Trump. Here's some more on time traveling. Trump family, could they be time travelers? Is there time traveling? Are there demons? Remember, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities of evil in dark places.
There's a fascinating, albeit highly controversial theory that suggests Donald Trump is a time traveler, thanks to a time machine allegedly developed by the inventor Nikola Tesla. But where does this idea come from? It's based on a series of curious coincidences and connections between old books, historical events, and the Trump family itself. In 1893, a book titled The Marvelous Underground Journey of Baron Trump was published, written by lawyer and author Ingersoll Lockwood. In this book, the protagonist, Baron Trump, is a wealthy young boy who lives in a place called Castle Trump. Interestingly, Baron Trump is also the name of Donald Trump's youngest son. 3 years later, in 1896, the same author published another book titled The Last President. The story describes a very wealthy man living in New York, specifically on Fifth Avenue, the same location where the Trump Tower stands today. In the book, this man runs for president of the United States, but no one believes he will win. However, he surprises everyone and wins the election. There's a fascinating...
What is going on Earth, y'all? Is everything we put on film and in books coming to fruition, becoming a reality? Guys, stay in prayer, please. Lord have mercy.
Is Donald Trump's family time travelers?
The theory that the Trumps are time travelers.
Grab me a DeLorean.
This connects to Nikola Tesla.
No way!
Nikola Tesla died, and within his hotel that he had 80 plus trunks of all his patents, his designs for different technologies, all this stuff. Guess who they sent first to go and collect the stuff?
I don't know.
John G. Trump, Donald Trump's uncle.
What?
Weird.
So the theory is that he took some of these trunks.
Oh no.
Oh no.
But Tesla said that he had figured out how to bend time. So
As one does.
What?
the theory is Donald Trump's uncle took this, created a time machine.
Oh my gosh.
And then the weird connection is there was a book that came out in 1896, and it's called Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey.
You're saying
Do you know
it was actually Baron
do you know what the book was about?
What?
Baron Trump.
What do y'all think? And as always, thanks for watching and stay weird.
All right, y'all. Check it out. Last video. What is going on? How do we get the privilege to contact these people? What is the secret? Lord, talk to me. Send your angels. Let us see, my God, what we should be seeing, Father.
Quote from Donald Trump, talking about a large-scale terror attack 19 months before 9/11. In his 2000 book, The America We Deserve, Trump wrote, I really am convinced we're in danger of the sort of terrorist attacks that will make the bombing of the 1993 Trade Center look like little kids playing with firecrackers. Trump also mentioned the mastermind of the attack, writing, quote, "One day, we're told that a shadowy figure with no fixed address named Osama bin Laden is public enemy number one, and U.S. jet fighters lay waste to his camp in Afghanistan. He escapes back under some rock, and a few news cycles later, it's on to a new enemy and a new crisis." Trump.
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a second. Is this really Trump before 9/11? Have you read this?
It's 2000 in his book.
Are we making this? Did you make this up, Mika?
Nick.
I did.
Did you make this up?
Nick, tell us it's over, right? Because
Will you
he's wrong
stop?
about everything.
Mika, stop. God.
I don't think it's over.
What's that? What's the rage here? Will you stop
No,
picking
it's
on
cute.
him?
I think it's cute.
Well,
go for it.
No, really quickly, though. I mean, so, Willie, that was...
2000.
In a book he wrote in the year 2000.
Well, it was published in 2000. He could have written in 1999 for all we know.
Exactly. He might have been a bit more precious.
So he basically predicted the attack.
Quote from Don.
Okay, last but not least, one more video. Sorry. I am just deep into this. I cannot get... Wow, I want some more, dude. This is the most fascinating. How did George Van Tassel die? So George Van Tassel died at the age of 67 from a heart attack, which his family says is a mystery because he seemed to be in perfect health at age 67. Bro, I'm not telling you what to believe. You know what's up. But I believe this. I wholeheartedly believe that we are dealing with a whole lot of things that the Bible talks about and a whole lot of things that the Bible, whoever wrote the Bible, has left out. Period. God bless you. Last video.
Okay, so this guy went from working at Lockheed Martin to build a dome promised to heal humanity through resonance. And right before it was completed, he mysteriously died and was cremated without his family knowing. Okay, so George Van Tassel, he worked as an aviation engineer for Lockheed Martin. He was supposedly contacted by this interdimensional being, did not like nuclear war, followed by a being telepathically gave him instructions to build something named an Integratron. It gets so interesting. This Integratron was centered around plasma. Yes, plasma, the fourth state of matter. It has metaphysical applications, he said. I'm also writing a book about plasma. The link is in my bio, but I just figured this out, and I'm freaking. According to him and the being, the building was built to generate these magnetic fields that would result in the generation of plasma in the form of a coronal discharge and negative air ionization inside the building. It would help everything from anti-aging to possibly curing cancer. It had to do with a Tesla coil. Building would basically resonate with the cell's frequency, recharging the cells of a person, rejuvenating them. And right before he finished it, he literally died. And vanished. And I'm not into like conspiracies, but this one I think is real. I also think it's real because plasma does have healing properties. I think he didn't achieve it. I guess maybe the government, whatever. So had some weird doomsday prophecies, and that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because plasma reflects belief. I think this plasma stuff is magic. You just need a healed nervous system to be able to channel it and ground it in reality. Okay, so